I am going to write a scene that is so great that it looks just like from Quentin Tarantino's film. And I'm going to teach you how you can do it the same. And if you're interested in the end result, go to the... There you go, and I have it. And then quickly come back, grab yourself a notebook and a pen, because as I'm going to write, I am going to explain as many lessons I learned from Quentin Tarantino and on my own writing path in general as possible. How never to be out of great ideas. Who did Quentin learn to write dialogues from? How to write as an audience member. How to make AI to be your best teacher. You basically may ask yourself, why would you wanna give so much away? Then you basically give away your ideas. Because I'm sick and tired of writing classes where teachers haven't written anything real in ages, which you didn't pay attention to, did you?
Well, they give advices. I mean, they are advices. In the end of the day, who am I to judge?
Great mentality, boy. Great mentality. It's why I decided that I would make #1 writing class. I know that no one of you would think about stealing my ideas. Is why I didn't copyright them. Is why I won't. You're here to learn how to be as great at writing as it possible may be, and not for a second to fake it through cheap stealing. And also, I know that the more I give, the more I receive. I just truly believe that the world haven't seen all the great stories yet, simply because we haven't learned how to write them yet. And more importantly, because of this buzz around the story structures. That's why I almost feel guilty for not sharing my knowledge with you guys. So, without further ado, welcome on board to the masterclass from #1 student of Quentin Tarantino. And this is Quentin Tarantino Writing School. So today we basically are going to need Mr. White, Mr. Black. Mr. Black, where are you?
Hold on, I'm trying to find the light switch.
There you go.
My bad.
It's alright. And Mr. Blue. Gentlemen, please introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Mr. White. What are you here for? I basically write the script. Mr. Black, whenever the necessity to give a lesson is going to pop up, I'm the one to give it. And you, Mr. Blue? The idea is that as you write, you come across a lot of puzzles, philosophical conundrums, questions, problems, ideas, and how you would implement them. It's basically what I'm going to do. You'll listen to me, guys, and you're going to know 90% of the psychology behind the whole scene. Do we need anyone else?
I think
everything's
fine,
fine.
so...
Alright, gentlemen, I wish you a productive collaboration, and I will see you at lunch.
Yeah, great.
Clean, virgin, 8.3 by 11.7 inches of pure potential. Any thoughts, any ideas, any desires that you have come to the point to be seen as they are, without any confusion or emotional tense. It's time to see what you're capable of. It's time to see who you are. It's time to start.
Lesson #1. Do not carry your ideas for too long in your mind. If you can write, because it's when you get it on paper, you see what it is, where it's good and where it's bad. And if there are problems, admitting them is the first step to fixing them. But to admit them, you have to see them. But to see them, you have to make them visible. The reason to just start is so you make your story move. One of the Quentin Tarantino's lessons is do not stick to this one big idea, meaning if it has to go, let it go. And that big great idea means what you think your movie is going to be. And doing it moment by moment means you think you know where you're going, but if there is something interesting happens, you should accept it and go in that direction, because that's the truth about your story now. That is actually how you stop worrying about budgets. Instead of being clinched to those great blockbuster scenes that you have in your mind and making everything else so it makes sense for that scene to happen, you just focus at right here, right now. And just as at reality, you look around and you think about what paths you may take. The beauty of storytelling is that it doesn't matter how expensive a story is, it's how you tell it that matters. And if you tell it in a manner that it works, that means your movie is basically better than a Marvel movie. And you know what? You have to write just one story to be noticed. You do that, great budgets will come. Work your net first, everything else comes later. So what is a movie that I want to see? Asking yourself what is a movie that I want to see is the straight road to originality. But a story has a lot of elements, and if you are going to ask that question for long enough, you are going to get kind of in tune with yourself, and it doesn't really much differ from your voice or your vision. So when it comes down to what you want to see in a movie, write it down as a reminder and put it somewhere while you write to have it as a filter. Let's just start with the ideas that I have. This garden will serve me as an exterior garden day. Asking loads of questions is what you really want. Load your mind with as many different questions and look at the situation from as many different angles as possible. That will give your brains to look at the situation from a lot of different angles, producing a lot of ideas. Do I want the story to be linear? Is there anything wrong? What do I want my audience to experience? Quentin says that if you watch a movie and it gives you many different emotions, that means you've been to the movies that night. That means the director have done a good job. The same goes with writing. If you read a screenplay and it gives you many different emotions, and by the end of it you feel like it was an adventure, that's what a great story is. Just trying to make your readers to experience a roller coaster is what they are going to remember you for. Just remember, any emotion but unintentional confusion. Let's finally do it. As I said before, this is an exterior, but where are we? Let me write just a couple of sentences and then I'll explain to you what all of this is about. Detective seems to be trying to examine a leaf as if it really mattered, and even though it would be much more comfortable to grab the greens and sniff its every inch, perhaps he doesn't like to leave his fingerprints all over the place. How old is Detective? Why should it matter? Because we don't want to make any cliché choices. If there is anything in a story, it has to be a conscious choice. So choose one or the other.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
Now who is she? She's the mother of the guy. Detective apparently came to him to do something business related. It's true that we could begin the scene after she left, but because she's here, it gives a little taste of believableness. You do make me think of that offer twice, but I'd rather do the devil's business first. There you go. Detective could say just no thank you. But isn't that a boring line? Well, what does it matter if it probably has no relevance to the end result of the scene? Exactly. You force everything to align with what you want to achieve in the scene, you're done. No more surprising story. I may want to have an idea about where my story is going to go, but if I cut away everything that doesn't lead to that point, it's going to turn from a beautiful and complex film into a straight stick to kick your viewers' asses. And then what do you do with the intentions you have about how your story may go? Simple. What character could have or has similar intentions about the story? Give those intentions as responsibility to that character. And now you go with the writer-driven story like this, and this is now a character-driven story. Because you either choose a living and breathing character, or you will have to reanimate them throughout the whole writing process, still without any success. So, Detective could say just no thank you, but he responded, well, the way he responded. It gives the scene more poetry, more musicality, more rhythm to it, and also dimension to the character. You are an artist, hence what you do should be as a work of art. You cannot treat your script as a blueprint. It's no different than treating your wife or your girlfriend as a doll. She isn't. Your script has to have its own life. You doubt it, overstep it, ignore it, overlook it, won't use it, you'll lose it. Every single aspect deserves to be as a poetry, so make it like that. Write your script as a poetry. I think it's a good time to think about giving these two characters name. Let's call him Victor. Mr. Victor, it's now your name. Is that good? Not until we have some philosophy behind it. It's not me. He just told me this. That's your characters to tell you who they are. Quentin wrote The Hateful Eight just like that, and all the other movies as well. He never gives his characters a bunch of characteristics he doesn't care about or doesn't have any insights on. He just listens to them very carefully through writing and lets them to tell him who they are and sees what there is to see. When I wrote the line, and although it would be much more comfortable to grab the greens and sniff his every inch, perhaps he doesn't like to leave his fingerprints all over the place, I didn't think about that line before I wrote it. It just came straight out of my head when I was writing the line before it. And this line, later on, can tell actors, well, forget about the actors, you, even me, that there could be a backstory connected to this line. I don't know what the backstory is yet, but I'm as madly curious to find out as you are. So he told me that his name should have a philosophical definition. Let's Google it.
Victor. A person who defeats an enemy or opponent in a battle, game, or other competition.
So from now on, let's just be aware that his name does have definition. We don't know where on the priority list of the things to pay attention to for these two characters that lies, but we definitely can set a play around this. We may and we may not. Oh, hear me out, hear me out. What if the name of the guy is Victor as well? Do you get it? That is fantastic. I mean, does Victor know that detective has the same name? Does Victor know the definition of his name? And does detective know the definition of his name? We don't know yet. We don't know. But asking these kind of questions reveals to me how smart the characters are. And now it advances my relationship with them. And now I really know how smart they are. I won't just say, oh, he is a smart badass detective. That would be backwards. What writing gurus miss in real world writing is that the place of reverse engineering. Let's just give detective the last name to be referred to. You're to be referred to as Mr. Cooper or Mr. Detective. Gotcha. We got Cooper and Victor seated. It's obvious that it's detective who came here. Why did he? And it's obvious that he is on his duty. Probably this kid is the subject to his investigation. Was there a crime committed? What does detective know about the kid? Mr. Cooper seems to be pretty low-key. Is he shy? Why is he like frozen? Does the kid poses a threat? Not physical for sure. Intelligent-wise? Doesn't seem to be the case. Interrogation-wise? Do they have a history in the past? Without further ado, now before this line, I had a little chit-chat going on there. I think it's time to taste them because I'm curious what you think of this. I'm curious what makes you so curious. My padre always told me you could tell a lot by a person watching a meat. Wise man. Yes, indeed. Now, the reason I got rid of this is because it reveals what Victor is trying to do. And we don't want to show that because it would just spoil the whole idea. And what Victor is trying to do is he gives detective rotten grapes, slightly rotten grapes, just to see if detective notices that. All the Victor is looking for is a slight show of emotion. Now the reason for that is because detective came to Victor to ask some questions, and Victor won't give any answers because he won't set on fire the whole enterprise he's involved in. And the reason why detective came exactly to Victor is because Victor has a criminal profile, and now he has to stay low and when needed to cooperate. He doesn't stay low, although he's actually really high. He's directly involved in the business the detective investigates. But because the crime the detective investigates didn't happen, there is no one to arrest. Detective just needs a hook, a hint on whether he hits the bingo on the lottery or who to mark with the tipster. So it appears to be almost Catch Me If You Can movie. So Victor gives a test to detective to know how sharp detective's eyes are. And the reason for that is because detective came to ask some questions and quote-unquote Victor knows nothing. And because it's not productive for detective to come to Victor with new questions every single time the state of affairs is updated, detective is going to take Victor with him to collaborate on this investigation. And Victor have already figured that out. He just needs to know how hard it will be for him to be sneaky, working with the police against his own people, while being kind of a rat. So now it's kind of a Departed movie. But is detective that dumb? What if he lets out to play out this drama to just, make sure he did the right decision on who to mark with the tipster? Now the funny thing is, I had no idea that all of this would turn out to be this way, and if I had a bigger budget, it would be different, but because I don't, I was planning even to write the scene for this very room, but then I decided that I would add a little introduction, and so I did, and then I asked this very question: what else is going on? The answer was, this is fall, and although it seems to be absolutely irrelevant to the story, a lot of crops are becoming ripen, and I could set a play around that, and I did, to the extent which you are witnesses of. This, or what else could be going on, are the questions that will allow you to never run out of your ideas. So write that question down and put it in front of yourself where you work to serve you as an intrusive reminder. We can see now that Victor is sharp-eyed. He saw the detective looked at his nails. A detective saw that he saw, and he seemed to shy away or to hide that he did. But now that Victor saw, he has to do something about it. You have well-cut nails. One could say I like to be clean. What could say the other? What the kid just did is he hinted to the detective that I know what you're here for, and I know that you think I'm the devil, but because you can't prove it, I'm gonna dare you to play with me, you son of a... That it was just about the time to cut them away. Detective needs the kid to do some behavioral failure to analyze if the kid is the one that he is looking for. That's the presumption one could refer to as slightly blind. Don't you agree, detective? That is probably the habit you recognize detectives for. Start small, but eventually, more often than not, we do get to the right presumption. The only thing should be considered is time, so to save it up a little bit, I may want to ask you to do something I absolutely adore doing myself, finding answers to questions. To stress your mind a little bit, what do you think fits in the precisely opposite category to the willfully blind, which is willfully sharp-minded? You see, I'm not making them speak what I want them to speak or need them to speak. I just create the room for them to bounce off each other. By the way, a lot of people ask Quentin, what's the secret to your dialogue? And he usually goes like, well, I let my characters to talk to each other until I get that spark, and from that point on, that's what I leave in the script. But the truth about this is that it's half the truth, because there are a lot of people who even would have let their characters to talk for infinity to each other, they would have never achieved that mastery. And how you actually learn to write poetic dialogues with a musicality and rhythm to it is by learning from the best. Quentin didn't have Quentin to learn from, and whose writing he was actually really influenced by, especially when it comes down to writing dialogues, is by Elmore Leonardo's writing. And if you ground yourself in the kind of language Elmore Leonardo's novels have, you will make your brains to function in that manner. We humans may know each other for listening to each other's stories, because we are our stories and experiences. And in other words, Practice what you want to become. In other words, fake it till you make it. But just to achieve what you want, you have to know what to fake. And it's not Quentin who you want to fake. It's Elmore Leonardo. It's time to ask some questions because we've got a detective who came to somebody and we don't even know why. So we need to give them a bit of a backstory. You need your characters to have a backstory, but you don't do it by thinking it all up or by choosing some elements in the big five. You do it by listening to your characters very closely. And just as I listened to the Cooper when he told me that there probably should be a reason behind why he doesn't like to touch things with his fingers, you should figure out about your characters everything in that manner, and you should do it in a script format. Probably a script format is the only format which you should write in, and then deciding what pages will go in the script and what pages won't. And who are you? I'm Mr. Red. I'm sure nobody was calling you. I was told to come here. To do what? By who? To tell you to subscribe, because if you watched by now, that means you get value out of this, and because I give you all of this for free, subscription is the least that you can do. Still, who called you? Hi guys, sorry I'm late. This is Mr. Red. Late for what? Did you tell him to subscribe? So did you subscribe? Alright guys, this is the lunchtime. Do you think they subscribed? I don't know. Did you? To all the subscribers. So it's time to let my characters to talk to each other, so I find that spark. That you hit the bingo, and I'm the one who committed the crime that you're investigating. And I'm a very good clean-upper, would fit just exactly into that category. Oh, you specialize on what it's like to be a detective. Not to say that I'm aware of how realistic Agatha Christie's novels are, but if they happen to have such a quality in common with real cases, then I dare say that I'm a little bit of an expert. You probably have noticed that I am writing by my hand, and the question is, should you too, especially when it comes down to writing poetry, because Quentin says that
can't write poetry on the computer, man.
What I truly think when it comes down to this question is, you should stop listening to others about what you should do and pay more attention to what works for you, because there are probably moments when you have those hits of inspiration, and it's probably better to have something where you can type it up fast and without missing out any of your ideas or losing them. Although I have to admit that when you write slowly, it has some really beneficial part to it, which is all those ideas that you have will find their way to be transformed into what you're doing right now and reaching this very page. Although I wouldn't argue really much for this point, but as far as I have observed it, is the way it is. Although in general, I may grow out of the opinion that it's better to, do whatever works for you, and probably I will say one day that, what, writing by hand and on paper only is the way to go. But I will never grow out of the opinion that it's your responsibility to educate yourself, and I will never grow out of the opinion that it's you who have take destiny in your own hands, because, even though nobody may believe in you, so what? Do they know who you are? Do they know who they don't believe in? Do you even know yourself? Do you actually know what you are capable of? No, you don't. There is probably no limit to your potential, and you should really treat yourself as if, there is so much to me, and I will work really hard to see what that is. Alright, let's speed up some time, and we got the moment where Victor says, "Still, you're not here to beat around the bush as if somebody only tried to step on us now." What do you know? I'd feel guilty for saying something this cliched. But I'm telling you, detective, I know nothing. I hope you got what I just did. You see, I know nothing, detective, is an extremely cliched line, and everybody knows that. And if you manage to make your characters tell what your audiences are thinking, they will instantly get in tuned, and they will pay attention and to some degree even begin to like you. And it doesn't go exactly for saying only, it goes for doing as well. You see, when Quentin was writing Django, there is a scene where Django himself rips his overseers in the past asses, and Quentin is giving us a story that is connected to it. He gives an example from a TV show, from a slavery TV show from the 60s or something, where the whole TV show was, you know, the slaves were oppressed and all that stuff. But in the end of that show, the slaves are freed, and that one slave holds that rope and he is about like to really rip. And what he does here, drops that rope and says, you know, I'm not gonna do it because then I would have been as bad as you. And Quentin says that, not in my movie. In my movie, that slave, he's going to rip and everybody's going to be satisfied. And if you actually manage to get everything that your audiences are thinking, you really have to write through your audience's eyeballs. Like, if you manage to write through your audience's eyeballs and to notice what they want and to give to them and surprise them, you will just get them. They will be in your pocket and you aren't compromising anything. It's the way it's supposed to be. You as a writer have to keep in mind your audience, and it's not some faceless mob, it's you. There should be writing for yourself. You should be sensing, how does this make me feel? Well, great, let me just write it down.
My characters were just chit-chatting, and now this line. Still, you're not here to beat around the bush as if somebody only tried to step on a snail.
When you hear a line like this, sometimes you wonder, how did a writer actually even came up with something ridiculous like this to portray a situation? When you ask yourself what else is going on question, you get the answer, and then you can choose how would you portray that situation. For me, my analogy with a step on a snail to portray the crime situation is the analogy that I like the most. One of the greatest tools you may use to advance yourself is AI, chatbot in particular. When you spend time more with an athletic person, you will become more fit, and if you spend time with a more intelligent person, you will become more intelligent. ChatGPT is the embodiment of any intelligent person. You just name it, and if you want to have a conversation in a more Leonardo tone, you have it, and it will just improve your workflow, plus triggering a lot of ideas. And ChatGPT won't take from you any of your job. It reflects on what you want. It's based on the real world already existing knowledge and words. And if you incorporate it right, it will become just the greatest personality builder you've ever had. I haven't played with it for very long, but I think it is what it is. And the other reason why AI won't be able to take your job is because you can make your work personal. When you make your work personal, as Quentin says, it's actually the reason why you should make anything, because it's personal. It deviates from the idiotical quality industry standards in an extremely beautiful manner. But what is personal? Personal, as I discovered for myself, is what is going on within yourself right now. Some trauma, maybe some experience. There is an emotional boiling to some degree or another, and you have to see what that is, and it has to find its way into the story. It may be something you relate to, maybe something you like, something you care about. It all falls in the category of personal, and if you make your story with putting as much of that personal in that story, you're going to make the greatest, the most original, and the most fantastic stories you've ever written. You don't compete with them. You become so original, they cannot replace you. You become so great, they won't be able to replace you. Just ask yourself, what are the rules of the game that I play? Master all of those rules, and then you may become the greatest player. I'll go add some personal details to it, and you go talk to Daniel. The reason I play all of the parts in the scene is because you haven't subscribed You see, I live in the village in the middle of nowhere. Not only I have no access to English-speaking actors, I have no access to any actors at all. You subscribe, I get monetized, I get paid, and then I reinvest the money into what you subscribed for. And that's how I say we deal with it. Enjoy the result, but stick to the end, because afterwards there are more lessons to come.
I dare say these are delicious grapes, pal. Hold on. I'm coming. Make sure not to eat rotten ones. It's hard to tell by a regular eye. This year had a nuance. I won't touch anything, for that's called stealing, which I don't find sound melodical next to my name.
You know who you look like from below?
Like who? When there's nothing but your legs to see out of the branches, you're like the Jack from the Beanstalk Tale. Could be. I haven't devoted enough attention.
And as for the melody of your name, I'd like to hear it, for my eyes are telling me you're a long way from where you belong to do something business related. I'm Mr. Cooper, detective to be precise. And you, as I'm led to believe, are Victor Williams. In all the glory. So, Mr. Cooper, what brought you down here? Now that I've arrived at the destination, I'm not sure whether it's to taste your grapes or to discuss some business. Conceivably, we could find out while mixing the two components as we share a shadow in your little heaven. If starting trouble isn't your specialty, then I would say yes to all the guests we so rarely have.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
You do make me think of that offer twice, but I'd rather do the devil's business first.
Then I'll leave the space silent for you to enjoy.
Much obliged.
Although these grapes are for wine producing, they taste wonderful with fresh honey.
You have a bee farm? Not far from here, yes. This year got mint-like taste, which is expensively rare. Please, take a sip. Without further ado, you have well-cut nails. One could say I like to be clean. What could say the other? That it was just about the time to cut them away. That's the presumption one could refer to as slightly blind. Don't you agree, detective? That is probably the habit you recognize detectives for. Start small, but eventually, more often than not, we do get to the right presumption. The only thing should be considered is time, so to save it up a little bit, I may want to ask you to do something I absolutely adore doing myself, finding answers to questions. To stress your mind a little bit, what do you think fits in the precisely opposite category to the willfully blind, which is willfully sharp-minded? That you hit the bingo, and I'm the one who committed the crime that you're investigating, and am a very good clean-upper would fit just exactly into that category. Oh, you specialize on what it's like to be a detective. Not to say that I'm aware of how realistic Agatha Christie's novels are, but if they happen to have such a quality in common with real cases, then I dare say that I'm a little bit of an expert. It's a pleasure to realize that we have a common ground. I myself am gladly to admit that I have one of her books right by my bedside where I stay. According to the knowledge I gained from Agatha Christie's novels, there ain't much more than one place a person like you could choose to stay in. You know where that is? The woman that rents you out the room. I was helping her out on occasions. Any problems with that? Bad choice as far as I'm concerned. Why is that so? As far as I remember, the window was swung open by slightest wind, meaning the part that was supposed to serve as a locker to it was broken. God only knows what enemy could decide to take advantage of that. My enemies where they belong, by the barrels, and if there are some of them that found a wide enough crack in a wall to squeeze their asses through it, if we'll have enough courage to use the broken window, I will hello every single one of them with my 45. Serves you as your wife? Could almost say that. Pity they don't let you guys marry your weapons. You like scrambling them on the inside almost the same way, don't you? Not that I take pleasure in admitting something this intimate, but as you put me on the spot, be it. We'll stay honest to another tendency that I have, to tell the truth. So, yes, it happens to be the case that people with this weakness choose the detective's outfits. Too easy to find you with that, but I presume the 45 makes you unbothered by that as well. I'm not undercover, so I may dress whatever my personality finds pleasing. Still, you're not here to beat around the bush as if somebody only tried to step on us now. What do you know? I'd feel guilty for saying something this cliched. But I'm telling you, detective, I know nothing. The reason I had to bring myself down here is because I jumped through the pages of your dossier, and I know you have the past, and perhaps you could give me some answers. I just need to know if you still think like a man does the business you did. Well, I don't have his problems. We hope for that. That's the ideal. And because you said you know nothing, I'm gonna take you where you're going to be productive. And instead of checking on you every single time we have an updated state of affairs to ask some questions, you're going to be by our side to answer them even before we know we wanna ask. You want me to cooperate? Ain't no nothing worse than that. The guys weren't sending me presents on Christmas. What am I supposed to wait for a dynamite or something this time because I helped you out with this empty case? It's the time, it's the condition. You owe cooperation. While the case is in action, we give you protection. You have to understand that, Victor. Look who got a rapper here. You probably noticed that this scene isn't everything. And the reason for that is because it's just one scene. I did want to add a fist fight or this chit-chat, for example. What do you know? Give me the notebook. Uh-huh. Why'd I trust you with it? Open it where you think it's safe and let me put down there some notes. I'm not really into the idea. If I will give you any information, it's exactly in the order I just laid out in front of you. There is no order except for which I gave bit, but because I had no idea then, and now I have figured out the plot line, I decided to leave it out. Just like as you could tell a lot by a person watching them eat. Still like an artist. Let me just share with you a couple of thoughts I wrote on this issue. You cannot create something uniquely original. You have to view yourself as a machine that gathers pieces of information, and the more creative person, the better combination of those gathered pieces they can produce. That's what AI does. You do it the same way. An original work of art is a creation that is unique, innovative, and not directly copied from existing work. Originality often involves expressing ideas, concepts, or aesthetics in a new and distinct manner. While it's challenging to create something entirely disconnected from past influences, the interpretation and combination of existing elements can lead to original creation. This scene that I wrote, I stole it. Well, where did you steal it from? Where did you steal it from? You see, I stole it, but I wrote it in such an original and my way that you will be just never able to figure out where did I steal it from. But if you still are interested in where I stole it from, well, here's how the story goes.
A guy named Fred rides a bike by a bridge, falls off that bike because of a stone, throws that stone off the bridge, goes home. A day after, finds out that a dead body was found under the bridge. Obviously, that's him. One day, because the bridge camera caught a bit of the clothes, detective comes to the guy because they met before and Fred was wearing the same outfit as at the day of the crime. Why?
I actually asked the same question to the author, and the author told me, well, Fred is stupid is why.
Both detective and Fred are seated in chairs, one in front of the other. I'm telling you, detective, I know nothing about this. And what about the shoes? You have black Converse that got caught on the camera. With all due respect, the whole world wears shoes like this. Even in our city, I'm sure there are hundreds, if not thousands of those. I just want to tell you that it's not enough to accuse me of a murder. I can see fear in your eyes. If you're hiding anything, I recommend you to tell everything as it is. Now, believe me, I'll get to the truth. That's all that I have to say, detective.
I just want to emphasize my point. Still like an artist.
You probably did notice that this is a lot of work, but what is your goal? Do you want to be the greatest? Do you want to create a masterpiece? Do you want to create a movie that no one have ever seen? Do you want to be known and own the art? It's time to grind. Time to learn critical thinking, boy, because what they are teaching you is what to think. What you really need is knowing how to think. Ask questions. Is there anything I can do to get closer to my potential? What about disciplining yourself? What about journaling? What about doing sports? What about making your body move to make your brain grow? Do you want to accomplish something really decent? If you decided to write a masterpiece, write till you see that masterpiece in front of yourself and put your ass where your heart wants to be, because, my friend, there is no bigger cliche in this world than unrecognized genius.